All right, all right, all right. If I look a little tired, a little surprised, a little confused, it's because I've woken up and there is a massive StarCraft patch. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. It is a PTR, which means Public Test Realm, aka a beta patch. A patch that is going on to a special version of the game, which you guys can download and test right now. Now, one of the big problems we've had in the past, before we get into these changes, is no one tests these changes. So the economy's changed, Protoss has changed, Warpgate is semi-removed from the game. It's crazy. If you want to play this, go to your thing, and instead of StarCraft in this dropdown, click Public Test Realm. You'll have to download a 27 gigabyte client of the game. Download that, and you can play with everyone else and actually test it. Normally, we don't get many people who actually test these things until they're actually live on the ladder, but with such big changes, I really hope there's a massive influx of that, because these are some big changes. I was not expecting these. A few people have said, oh, look, this is just the economy changes Pig talked about. There's a reason I was talking about worker start changes, guys, recently. It's because people kept telling me they're going to change the worker start. We mentioned this in our worker start video. I said, I don't know where people will not give me a source, but I have had people for the last 2 months in my chat every day saying, Pig, why are they changing the workers? I've had people say 6, I've had people say 9, I've had people say 8, but there's lots of people saying they're reducing the worker count, they're reducing the worker count. Clearly there was some sort of leak. I never got a clear source on when that was happening, if it was happening, or anything like that. And I was very open about that in my last video. People were like, wow, they just did the changes you said. Yes, because these are the changes that I was talking about a year ago, did a whole series of videos testing, and since then, we've been playing modded tournaments of these on Green Earth's mod for the last year, for the last 6 months at least, right? With similar changes to these. Not quite these, but similar. So let's go through and talk about them. First of all, economy. Starting workers reduced from 12 to 8. Default large mineral patch resource reduced from 1,800 to 1,600, and small raised from 900 to 1,200. So what we're seeing here, guys, is your bases are going to lose half their mineral patches a few minutes later, but the big patches aren't going to last quite as long. Overall, it's a slight increase on minerals on a base, but almost the same. What this does is it means you are not going to run out as fast. Your bases aren't going to mine out as quickly, which means you can do more 1-base, 2-base aggression without the double whammy. If you guys didn't see my last video about this, explain this in clear detail. Essentially, the double whammy was a problem with the 900 mineral patches, where these would mine out in your main base at about 8.5 minutes every game. So if your opponent defended, you say go 2-base muta, you fly around, your opponent secures a third, but it's kind of very turtled up. They get a third mineral line, you're both on 40 workers, they get the third mineral line open. In a normal RTS, that means they have a mineral line, they have maybe 8 worker advantage, big advantage, but, you know, it's okay. You can transition and catch up as the muta player. What happened with the double whammy is because your main base would half mine out, and you don't have a third base as the muta player, you're down to 1.5 mineral lines, your opponent is on 2.5. So it's actually a much bigger advantage percentage-wise. It gets closer to double your economy in terms of available minerals. As you guys know, minerals are the most important resource in StarCraft 2, and what this did is it basically forced you to expand or kill the opponent. So just to summarize, what was the problem with the 900 mineral patch, especially in the main base specifically? And that was that your main base minerals would mine out. So if you did something very high-tech or very aggressive, but you didn't actually completely kill you or hamstring your opponent, you would not only have them maybe secure some sort of advantage by defending, but you would also get double whammied by your economy getting mined out behind. So this is going to give you a few more minutes of ability to stay on 1 or 2 bases without your economy getting cut out from underneath you. That's cool. Now, I'd actually suggested in my last video not these changes. Keep that in mind. These are not my changes. I said you should make the main base only, all mineral patches 1,500 minerals. Everything else still works the same with the mineral patches on every other base, but the main base specifically will take way longer to mine out. But your other bases will still mine out at a more rapid rate, encouraging players to expand to an early 4th and early 5th and get rewards for it, rather than sitting on just 3 bases and turtling for a very long time. So these are different, but I still don't mind them. It's still, there's a smaller differentiation between when the patches mine out, but there is still an advantage for continuing to expand. Really curious to see how this plays out. The gas on the Vespene going up, I don't think that's really necessary. It's an extra 500 per base, lasts a bit longer. It already feels like the Vespene gas lasts a lot longer than the minerals on bases. This is something I only really see affecting PvZ. You know when there's a really scrappy PvZ where the Zerg doesn't have an amazing economy, but the Protoss economy is like totally shot to shit, but then Protoss wins anyway because like, even though they've got no minerals, they're like, oh, I have 1,500 gas. And because the gases keep mining, even with they're down to 3 bases with barely any mineral patches, I can make another 6 Archons. And the Zerg's like, oh my God, Archons are a really good, well-rounded unit. I don't really see this being that impactful outside of that situation. And then last but not least, the rich Vespene gas geyser harvest return value has been decreased from 8 to 6. Map makers were saying this was a really big thing because the Vespene rich gases gave too much reward. They had to be really conservative with where they put these purple gas geysers because it was such a big payoff. I don't know if you guys watch my commentary, but it is a meme in all of my commentary that you could put a rich Vespene gas geyser anywhere on the most obviously horrendous base. Pro gamers will take it because it's got purple gas on it. Contrary to popular opinion, I think pro gamers threw a huge percentage of games when they did this. I think pro gamers probably like just got baited into taking purple gas bases and throwing games unnecessarily dozens of times, hundreds of times. I think I already think that people were way overvaluing the purple gas geyser and getting excited, and they would literally kill themselves trying to take the base. It was really dumb. I don't think you needed to change this, but if this gives you map makers more freedom, I almost always bow down to map makers on this. If they think something is too restrictive, I think open it up. Why not? If they think that's going to give a bit more, maybe you can do a double purple gas base because they give a little bit of less gain. Maybe you can put them in slightly more conservative or less conservative positions. Go for it. Why not? This is a map maker change, which I'm sure a year from now, I'll see all the maps they've done with this change and I'll go, it'll finally click in my brain and I'll go, oh, you can do that now? That is really cool. But it's going to take time for me to fully understand these little kind of niche map maker changes. All right, guys, let's get into the Zerg changes. Now, obviously, if you're changing the worker count from 12 down to 8, part of the reason you want to do that is because, remember, expanding is too cheap and high value in current StarCraft 2. So part of that is you get a lot of extra supply in Legacy of the Void compared to Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty with those supply buildings. The reason that is so you don't get supply blocked at the start of the game. Hatchery, Lair, and Hive. Supplies provided reduced from 6 to 4. Obviously, Command Centers and Nexus are also going to go down from 15 to 13. If they want, they could make Protoss down to 12. For those who don't know, Protoss actually got less supply than Terran in Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty. Protoss had 10 supply for the Nexus, Terran 11 supply on the Command Center. And that is some would say, part of the reason why Terran is such has been cheated. For those who don't know, ask a Terran player who's got balance complaints. Supply depots take 21 seconds to build. And the SCV needs to sit there building that depot. Zerg and Protoss, 18 seconds for an Overlord or a Pylon. They just pop it down or build it from the hatchery and go back to mining. Like, what the hell, man? What the hell? But part of that, obviously, you need to build the depot before you can build the barracks. It's part of what gates certain Terran cheeses and rushes as well, which is why it is that way. But anyways, I assume they're going to do 13. We'll find out in a moment. The creep spread and recede rate is slowed. So your creep spread's a little slower, but it also recedes a little slower when it gets cleared. I don't have many thoughts on this, guys. That's probably reasonably impactful, but I don't have much to say about that. Like I said, I didn't know these changes were coming, so I'm just going to be reacting to them. If I don't have much to say, I'm like, we will see what that does. In general, creep can feel a little frantic, like it sometimes spreads way too fast if the Zerg has map control. If that's like a little less of an APM dump, feeling a little less frantic in the game, I guess that might feel nice from both sides of it, but we'll find out. Now, a lot of people are complaining about Mutalisks being too dominant since the Spore has been lowered to 300 hit points, so they're adding an extra 5 damage to biological. Let's just do some quick maths. In this sort of situation where a change is obviously based on a single thing, you've always got to do quick maths there. So a Mutalisk has 120 hit points, guys, divided by 30. So previously it was taking 4 shots from a Spore to kill, except it wasn't really 4 because of regen. Remember, all Zerg units instantly regenerate a fraction of a life when they take damage, which means it would actually have taken 5 hits to kill unless you had a queen or something else adding a bit of damage to that Mutalisk, right? Because it would have regened a hit before the 4 hits come out. So now you do 120 life divided by 35. It's actually only going to take 4 hits on its own. Now, if you had a queen there that happened to hit the Mutalisk before the Spore hit it, okay, cool. That doesn't change anything, but this does overall just make sure those mutas die in 4 hits when the spore's on its own, which is a pretty impactful thing. If someone's coming in with like 12 Mutalisks to snipe a spore, they're going to either have to be very quick at microing those Mutalisks back, or they're going to pay a price of a couple of Mutalisks, which is cool. Next up, guys, Carapace has been buffed. Now, this is kind of crazy. Level 1 Carapace from 151... Wait, didn't these already get made cheaper previously, guys? I'm trying to remember. Have these already been buffed in a previous patch from their, like, Wings of Liberty Heart of the Swarm value? Because I know Terran upgrades got made a lot cheaper when there was all that horse trading going on around 2023 with Terran and Protoss changes, where, like, Terran was like, well, if you take away our Widowmine, we need cheaper upgrades. There was so many little minute trades that went on that it's so hard to remember them all. Like, it's so hard to remember them all. I don't know. I think they made shield upgrades cheaper for Protoss and all Terran upgrades cheaper, but maybe they never buffed the Zerg upgrades. I can't quite remember the changes. Okay, guys, so we can see here armor upgrade cost this patch 5.012, which would have been I think mid 2023. Armor upgrade cost was reduced from 150 to 225, 300. So it was level 2 and level 3 upgrades. Both got made cheaper in this patch back here. So Zerg did already get a slight buff on this, but now we're going to buff them more so. And this is a pretty damn significant buff for ZVT. You're saving that 50 minerals, 50 gas. Zerg is all about upgrading an early Carapace against Terran Bio. That's a pretty big change. And you save a bit on these two as well. Pretty nice buff for Zerg there. Infesta, Microbial Shroud range has increased from 9 to 12. Wow, it's already got a big AoE, guys. Don't get me wrong, tanks and libs could sometimes shoot down the Infestors before they get the Microbial super deep into the Terran arsenal if they were focus fired. 12 is crazy. This is the Infestor's going to throw the Microbial from a different screen and shield your whole army. You also don't need an upgrade from the Infestation Pit. All right, guys, so Microbial is not just playable. Microbial is now overpowered. This is so funny. One of the big points of contention in the patch where they made these Microbial changes is I was like, this ability could be crazy overpowered. And everyone went, well, it's not overpowered, is it, Ping? You were wrong. And I'm like, well, yeah, they added an upgrade. Like, I think they made it so you needed to get Hive Tech and then make an upgrade. And then they took away the Hive Tech requirement. The upgrade still costs a bunch and takes like 2 minutes to get. So this is going to go in the other direction, probably be slightly overpowered in the mid game against Terran, but I don't think it's going to be like, I think it's probably good for us to test it in a slightly overpowered state and see how it goes. I was always saying, make it accessible, make it easier to get to so we can actually test it and play with it and feel it out. Don't gate it behind so many upgrades that it's this mythical thing that kicks in the late game and no other time. You know, let it kick in a bit earlier so we could test it and see the real strength. And then maybe lower it, because at the moment, Microbial is a 50% damage reduction from ranged units. It also works on the enemy as well, by the way, keep in mind. So if you throw Microbial and their Bio stutter steps into it, and it's Bio versus Roach, for those who don't know, the units both are taking less damage. So sometimes there's this like funny thing where the Bio's like stutter stepping into your Microbial. Obviously, if you're playing Ultras, Lings, Banes, melee units... You don't want to run towards that as a Terran player anyway. But yeah, this is definitely something which is an interesting change. Microbial Shroud range from 9 to 12 is absolutely wild. I don't think it needed to be that far. I think what's really lame about this part is it removes the interesting counterplay. It used to be, if you really wanted to get your Infestors in, you might need to spread them so they don't all die to one tank shot. And you would often have to throw a Microbial as kind of the launch pad, where your units are basically shielded from the first volley of tanks and bio shots, but also your Infestors aren't just getting one shot by tanks. They're taking 3 tank shots to die once they're in Microbial, which is a lot. 3 tank shots to kill an Infestor is a lot. So 12 allows you to throw it from so far away, it removes that counterplay. And I think this part is probably leaning too far in the other direction. I think just change it so you can cast without the upgrade. People will use Microbial now. People will get it out before the ghosts are here. I would imagine if we look at the end of this testing period, this gets removed and we keep this. I think it already has perfectly fine cast range. You might think, oh, 9 cast range is not that big. Remember, when you've got a spell with a big fat radius, the effective range you're reaching with that spell is far beyond 9. So yeah, this is kind of crazy cast range here. All right, guys, Viper Abduct now considers sieged tanks a valid target. Oh, The two most complained changes about in the last patch, we all know what they were. Ghosts randomly getting 25 hit points at the 11th hour when they were meant to be made more fragile, which was utter bullshit. And the Viper, a unit that specializes in pulling high-value targets to it, not being able to abduct the 3-supply siege tank, while still being able to abduct carriers, tempests, Thors, and battle cruisers, literal interplanetary capital ships. But for some reason, a mothership, which can hold an entire civilization as it flies between the stars, and a single siege tank because he puts a little metal bolt into the ground are unabductable. Thank God they removed this. It really removed part of the fun of the game. It actually, to be fair, shout out to Harstem guys who did a fun video going Mass Viper, and people were getting really hyped about Vipers are good. And I was kind of laughing because I'm like, this is like the weakest Vipers have ever been against against like mech and stuff, where like they're not bad, but like you could only use Blinding Cloud. You have the option for Abduct. But well done, Harstem. You've done a video just before they've removed that change where you successfully made a bunch of meme builds with Mass Viper before they've gone back to making the Viper actually good. Shout out to you, Kevin. Well done. Very good timing. Overlord. All right, speed without pneumatized carapace decreased from 0.9 to 0.7. Okay. Yeah, so Overlord's going to be a little bit harder to get those pillars to scout with them and stuff. This is crazy. This is so game ending. This is terrible. How are we going to scout? I think this is okay. Hear me out. 8 workers start. Things are going to build up a bit faster. So you're going to get to their base at the same time, relationally to the build, right? I could be wrong. Oh, that's... Oh, yeah. That's without Overlord speed. Yeah. So this is... I think it gets there at the same time. All right, guys. So back on the Overlords, I think you get there at a similar time. But people are going to tell you one really important thing. ZVZ, what if someone 8 pulls? I mean, with 12 pull, they could even sneak Lings out already and avoid your first Overlord. Like now, you just can't hatch first. I think Drone Scout in general with 8 worker starts is really nice. I also think pull first becomes a bit nicer as well in a lot of matchups. One problem I have is I don't think there's a queen change here, right? Yeah, there's no queen change. So what I've been playing a lot of Green Ertz mod where queens are much cheaper and they're not like a one-size-fits-all defensive unit, but they're still good at injecting and they still help with the initial defense. So going pull first to get your early queen out, to get your injects going, and the queens are a bit cheaper as well, feels kind of nice. But I do think drone scouting, SCV scouting, probe scouting, the lower worker you go, the more valid these are, the more it's a calculated risk when you don't do those things. And honestly, even if the Overlord was the same speed as it is currently, if someone goes 8 pull, I don't know if you would have been able to see before the Lings sneak out. So I'm not sure. I need to do some testing on this, guys. Can now issue load nearby unit commands. I skimmed these changes very quickly before. Every transport has this. So basically there's a button now where you can just tell so if you know how everyone struggles with drops? So I think the idea is if you've got like 4 Metavacs or Overlords and people struggle with like clicking on them and stuff, which it's not really that hard, but hey, if it lowers the barrier entry, I think there's going to be a hotkey now, like an option, and you can just press, let's imagine it's like V for, and it'll just grab whatever's nearby. So you just be like, press V once, all 4 Overlords are just going to pick up the Hydras and Lings like a vacuum, whatever's nearby, and then you can go drop them. This seems just like a noob-friendly thing. No pro gamer is going to use this button literally ever. Unless they're doing like the old hold position Overlord elevator to elevate Zerglings over the cliff into the main, which, well, we don't have hatchery tech drops, so bring back hatchery tech drops. Pros might actually use this, but I don't think pros are going to use this. It's just a nice way of making it a bit more noob-friendly to use transports. Fair call. Changelings automatically inherit the current order queue of the casting Overseer. So this is a change where you can basically click your Overseer into their main, press drop a Changeling, and that Changeling is automatically then going to walk into the main where the Overseer was already told to move to. Once again, noob-friendly change, I don't mind. I'm okay for UI noob-friendly changes that don't really change too much. I don't really care about that. Now, for those who weren't here at the very start of the stream, this is the funniest change of the entire patch. Let me just zoom in here, guys. Changeling deaths are contagious to other nearby changelings. They nerfed our boy. If you guys weren't here at the start of the stream, basically we opened the stream with this image and with a, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. We nerfed the most cancerous Zerg of them all. Yeah, we nerfed Rogue. Rogue's been spamming mass changelings, and they fucking nerfed him. This is hilarious. No longer does Clem have to get mad at his PC lagging so he can't do his perfect micro while mass changelings go in and block his camera and 48 overseers fly over his army so he can't see what's happening. Absolutely amazing. I don't think this change was needed. Is it annoying? Is it frustrating? Yes. I think there's two camps you will fall in. It's going to be very subjective. You are either team Rogue. I love seeing abusive shitfuckery, just being annoying and being a dickhead. Heck yeah. So you're either team I hate this change, team Rogue, or your team Beyond, save Beyond's wrists. If you care for Terran players' wrists and you're sick of watching Beyond try and like shift click 470 changelings every minute of a 30-minute TVZ against Rogue while his like wrist is bleeding on the table, then you're team Beyond. So it's up to you guys. Are you team Rogue or team Beyond? I mean, I think it's really unfair to nerf Rogue and his clever strat. I also feel really for Beyond's poor wrists. For those who don't know, this is a funny strategy because specifically in Pigfest, there was a really funny game where this came in. This was specifically the game Rogue got a massive lead in Pigfest 6 on Beyond, could have gone and killed him in the mid game. But being Rogue, he decided to play with his food and make 300 overseers and just spam Nidus at him and changelings for the next like 20 minutes. And in fact, Beyond was like barely hanging on. You can see here, he looked very stressed the whole time. Rogue was just like, Lurkers and Niduses. And Rogue actually threw this game, and it was specifically, Beyond ended up getting a planetary in the back of his main base, barely in time to defend one of these waves. Let me see if I can find a shot of it. I'd never seen a guy build a planetary in his main. He got hit by so many of these friggin' Niduses that Beyond literally got a planetary in the back of his main base to defend it. It was one of the funnier things I've ever seen. And Beyond ended up winning this clutch, really long late game because of it. And Rogue kind of threw the game. He's beaten Clem a few times. He's annoyed a lot of Terrans with it. I don't know if it was necessarily an overpowered strat. It was just a very obnoxious strat. And I can imagine if people were spamming it on the ladder against average Joes and like breaking people's PCs and stuff, it's one of the more annoying things to play against. But I am kind of sad to see variety taken away from pro play. Even if it was one of the more obnoxious plays, I think that strategy games and RTS is you kind of want obnoxious strats mixed in there. So kind of sad this one's getting nerfed. I hated playing against it, but I kind of enjoyed the variety of watching it, even though it did feel like Rogue was trolling his opponent rather than trying to win in the most efficient manner. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, this is it, guys. So yeah, I finally found the shot. We've got... Who puts a planetary for... He put a Florencio planetary behind his main base. Like... You're not meant to do this at pro level, but Rogue is such a degenerate. He legit put a planetary there, and it saved him from like multiple Lurker Niduses. Such a sicko. All right, guys, Mutalisk. Mutalisk Glaives now prioritize targets. So I think that means normally the Muta bounce just goes to the closest thing. I think basically within a certain range, it's going to target combat units. So basically, like, I imagine it'll always bounce to like... Does that mean attack? I guess that means attack priority counts. So it's always going to target another Marine rather than a medevac with the bounce. It's always going to hit an SCV over a building, right? Essentially, like each bounce, because it used to just hit the building if that was closest to the target. It would hit the medevac if the medevac's flying above. But because medevac is a lower attack priority, building is the lowest attack priority unless it's a fighting building, it's basically going to prioritize those units. I don't see this making much difference at all. Arc slop increased to 180 is huge, guys. For those who don't know, arc slop is something that I need I don't know what the hell that means, I'll be honest. If you guys, does this do anything? I don't know what the fucking arc slop is. I don't know, man. I think it makes it may be easier to shoot when moving or something, like to keep moving, but like you could already move and shoot pretty, I don't know what that means. It's yeah. Does this change anything? You guys can let me know. I know attack range slop used to be, is a thing with like ultras and melee units where they get extra range when the enemy's moving out of range. Because otherwise a melee unit would run up, start attacking, and then be like, oh, I can't complete my attack. And you'd have an ultra be like, and the ultra's like running and stopping and running and jittering out and never actually landing attacks. So I know range slot was like a stat which basically gives melee units like extra range so they can complete their attacks so the game doesn't look as janky. I don't know what it is in the case of the Mutalisk here. Arc Slop is a weapon data field that determines the angle, allowing a target to move outside of the weapon's standard arc without losing the target lock. Okay. In game design, this is an angle to determine how far a moving target is allowed to stray from a unit or weapon's default targeting cone. Yeah. Okay, so basically it just means if they've started shooting a unit, the Mutalisk, and the unit moves further away, it can still shoot it. So essentially 180, I imagine it's like almost 2 spaces beyond what its actual 3 ranges. So if you start attacking a unit with a Mutalisk and it moves almost to, or maybe this is 180 degrees, I don't know. I have no idea what this means. You guys can tell me. We'll need to test it. Command Center supplies reduced from 15 to 13, and oh my lord, I told you guys the intern watches Green Earth's mod. It's the effing Super Ghost. Now, for those who don't know, the Super Ghost is actually a concept I quite like. Because what I hated about the last patch is they made it the Super Ghost without acknowledging that it was the Super Ghost. They put it back from 3 to 2 supply, and then they buffed the heck out of its hit points and a bunch of things. And I was like, what the hell? Why are you doing that? So this is kind of, it looks like at least partially inspired by Green Earth's Super Ghost. Green Earth's in chat saying, this is stronger than my Ghost, by the way. He's like, hold on. That's stronger than my Ghost. I don't know why my chat just disappeared, but it did. So supply is increased from 2 to 3 for the Ghost, but it's back to 100 hit points. It's still a light unit though, so it's less tanky than it's been on this last patch. Attack damage changed from 10 plus 10 versus light to 20 flat. So it does the same versus light, but now it does 20 versus other, which means you can like stutter step down a friggin' Banshee, or not a Banshee, but like a Medivacs with the Ghosts. It just does more damage in general. Its basic attack is just more well-rounded, and it gets 1 more range. 7 range on that sniper boy, which makes sense. He or she, they've got sniper rifles. Steady targeting, back up to 170 flat damage, what it used to be, and no longer cancelled upon taking damage, but it does cost 25 more energy, which means instead of getting 4 of these casts at max energy, a Ghost can only cast 2. So, I mean, I like the idea of it not canceling, because I always kind of hated the dichotomy of like, well, I don't quite interrupt the snipes and my whole army gets blasted, or I interrupt the snipes and the Ghosts do absolutely nothing. Ghosts felt very binary. It also felt very much like it encouraged the Terran player to sit in their corner touching themselves furiously rather than actually getting on the map. Because if you guys ever played Terran and you weren't Clem, I know Clem just pushes on the map with his Ghosts. He's so good at micro, it doesn't matter. Most Terrans would be like, well, if my Ghosts get caught, they just do nothing. They just die because they can't get their snipes off and they're terrible, right? So I actually like the idea of this change specifically, because it does encourage the Ghosts not to just hide behind planetaries quite as much. Overall, I haven't quite grasped this is a lot of changes in one go. I haven't quite grasped it. The Ghost obviously takes up more supply. You can't mass them as much. It's a bit less tanky. It's way better at generically fighting. Realistically, generically fighting is not really its goal, especially against Zerg. So if we were to put this, so what do these 2 changes do? These are buffs versus Protoss, because very rarely is the Ghost sniping. The Ghost just throws its CMPs and then it just shoots. And that extra damage there, it's going to matter if they're shooting an armored unit. So not a Zealot, not an Adept, not an Arc. Archons aren't light. So it's going to help them against Archons, which were already getting blasted by EMP. It's going to help them a little when they're shooting like Stalkers, Immortals, Colossus. I mean, it matters. It just doesn't matter that much. Most of the time, they were already shooting Zealots. So I don't really, I don't think this damage change, and against Zerg, normally the Ghosts are just sniping Ultras and stuff. It helps shoot down Banelings really badly. Like, they will blast, I guess when they're not sniping, they're running, and then they turn in a concave, they're going to like gun down Banes very easily. Do a lot more damage versus Roaches as well with a regular attack. It's impactful. It's very hard to like wrap my head around exactly how impactful. Oh, by the way, just a quick disclaimer. If you're watching this, whether on YouTube or Twitch, and you're going, you need to shout about this being broken or that being broken, you're in the wrong spot. Go watch any other StarCraft content creator. Every patch that's come out, every patch that's being proposed, there's a big pattern. I make videos when I do a first impressions reacts video where I'm digesting changes in a video. That's what I'm doing. I'm digesting them right now. And a lot of people don't understand this because they're like, well, I'm coming to you because I want you to echo my opinion in the most emotional, loud way possible. this is not the video for that. Now, I'm going to be doing follow-up videos and all sorts of analyses and testing things. When you haven't played with a change, you're reading it for the first time. If you have a really strong emotional opinion, that opinion is almost always hot air. It's almost always garbage. And even if you agree with someone and they echo that, that does not mean you should carry momentum. You should go and practice that and see how it plays out in game and actually think about it a little bit more. And a lot of people don't like that. And I've got this criticism for a long time in StarCraft 2. They're like, well, you're not shouting enough about the changes. I get it. Some people only watch the first impressions video. They don't watch the multiple analyses that actually break things down and go, this is clearly broken. This is clearly too strong in this way. This thing's clearly too weak. You know, I get those don't get as many views as, oh my God, new patch changes. Let's just look at them. But keep that in mind. Critical thinking and actually testing things and actually thinking about things. So I think at the end of every one of these units, people going, you need to tell me, is it 30% stronger, 80% weaker? Shh, that's going to come later. We're going to give some first impressions in that regard, but we're not going to go too deep on that. Just keep in mind. All right, overall, the Ghost is a stronger raw combat unit. Snipe cannot be cancelled. It cannot spam as many snipes. Snipe does a bit more damage against ultras again. Goes back to almost one-shotting a queen, one-shotting roaches, one-shotting zealots. It's 3 supply, you can't get as many. Honestly, I don't know how I feel about these changes. I think they are probably okay. But I'm going to completely reserve judgment on the Ghost. I need to play with this. This is one where I'm like, it's probably, I'm somewhere, you know, I'm a squiggly line. We're going to have to wait and see. I don't know on this one. I need to play with this. I need to play with and against this a bunch. All right, Medevac can load units nearby. It's also got subgroup priority, guys. Priority order updated from Raven, Ghost, BC, Marine, Marauder, Siege Tank to Ghost, Marine, Marauder, Raven, Battlecruiser, Siege Tank. I don't know what that means. Why is this on the Medevac? Is it the order? What? Medevac's not even in this list. What is this? Does anyone understand what this means? Like, I don't get why we would have a subgroup is the priority when you tab through the units, right? So why is this under the Medevac when the Medevac's not even listed here? I think this is meant to be down in the general Terran changes, not under Medevac, right? Yeah, there's meant to be a space. Okay, this is just not formatted. There's meant to be an enter between this and this. This is a completely different change to the Medevac change. Okay, this is just bad formatting on the post. Yeah. Okay, that makes a bit more sense. Yeah, basically, this is interesting, guys. So one of the big problems Terrans used to have, and part of the reason we don't build Ravens, is because when you box your bio to quickly stim and react and spread in different directions, guess what? Or you select your army, guess what gets selected first? The Raven. Terran is one of the most twitchy, fast-paced micro-required races. If you're wondering why Terran players often send their Raven off to go drop some auto turrets and die, it's specifically so when they get surprised by something, they don't jump back to a battle, try to stim, and go, oh shit, my Raven's selected, my units didn't stim, and they all died to Banelings. So essentially, you'll notice the Raven is getting moved lower in the priority. So it's going to be Ghosts, then Marine Marauder, and then it's basically saying, hey, the units you usually want is these ones, right? EMP, then tab, and then stim. And that actually, I like this change. This makes a lot of sense to me. I've heard Hero Marine, I think, says he doesn't like it because he's used to the other one, doesn't want to change, but also he's totally like open to it and he will figure it out. He's like, I'd rather it just stay the same because I'm used to the crappy way. But I think for most players, for me personally, I assume most players are like me, as like relatively more casual compared to pro gamer Terrans. This is going to make it much easier to have a Raven in my army without ruining myself. All right, guys, onto the Protoss changes, the Space Elves. And this is the part when I skimmed through before that actually broke my brain. Pig just made all these changes. Pig controls the balance now, yeah? What? I've not seen any of this, guys. I've not seen any of this. I've not heard of this. I've not talked about this. Just because I've done deep dives on the account, I've not talked about this at all. This is not something I saw coming in any way, shape, or form. Warp Gate is completely changed. I've not investigated this. I don't know what to think. Warp Gate research has moved from the gateway to the gateway from the Cybercore. I don't like that. I think it just made sense to be on the Cybercore. I imagine it still unlocks when Cybercore finishes, because otherwise you could get Warp Gate crazy early. But whatever, I don't care. This like doesn't really matter. It's just moving a thing around. I guess it's more logical if the upgrade's on the gateway. I don't care. Who cares? Warp Gate research speeds up gateway unit production time. It doesn't need the Cybercore. Oh, so you can get Warp Gate earlier. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so you can get Warp Gate earlier. All right, chat's confirming you can get Warp Gate earlier. Warp Gate research speeds up gateway unit production time by 35%. Now that's crazy. So this means when you're producing units out of a gateway, not a Warp Gate, they produce 35% faster. This is one of the most insane production speed increases. Can you guys imagine if all your barracks, all your hatcheries just produce 35% faster? Well, hold on. It's not actually overpowered. Do you know why? Warp Gates already give you like a 28%, like it's a very high, maybe 30% speed increase on all your unit production. So all this does, the majority of this 35% is actually just catching up gateway production to what Warp Gate production not naturally escalates it to. For those who don't know, it takes 27 seconds to build a Zealot. Warp Gate 20 seconds. And it's from not when it finishes warping in, from when it starts warping in. So if you have 8 gateways, you can make 24 Zealots a minute with 8 Warp Gates in the current version of StarCraft 2. So this means you could build them slightly faster. What's it going to go down to? So it's going to go from... Okay, so they're making the Zealot take an extra second to build. The Adept take a few seconds less. This is without Warp Gate. But you can see that, yeah, the Zealot's going to be 2 seconds faster if you build it out of a regular gateway than a Warp Gate. But it's still got to rally to where it's going. Overall, I wouldn't say that's a buff. I feel like you could make it 16 seconds, maybe even 15, because the downside is you're not warping a unit in their base on the front where a drop's coming in. So this is already not like a massive buff, is it, by any means, in that regard. It's a slight reward for leaving them in gateway production, which I love, and I think this is a really good choice. So on Greenert's mod, it's really interesting because initially he had no Warp Gate. Warp Gate was just removed, and he had all these cool bonus upgrades. Zealots had 10 extra shields, and I really enjoy playing that non-Warp Gate Protoss style, even though it's quite different, just because it's so different, and I was really having fun with it. But he actually, in his more recent versions of his mod, added Warp Gate back in. But what he did is, like, the overpowered upgrades that he'd added for the non-Warp Gate style would get grayed out if you went Warp Gate. So you could still play Warp Gate Protoss, same as normal, but you wouldn't get access to these, like, really cool upgrades that would give Zealots bonus shields. It would allow you to turn Stalkers into, like, a Dragoon-style unit with extra hit points and damage and range and all that sort of stuff. So that was the way he kind of added both paths. So it was like, you can produce your units faster out of gateways. It was called, like, warp efficiency and stuff. But this is very different because this change next changes everything. And this is what I have no experience with, which is transform to Warp Gate cost increase from 0-0 to 50-50. This is not the Warp Gate research, which already costs 50 minerals and 50 gas. This is every gateway transforming to a Warp Gate is going to cost you 50 minerals and 50 gas. And this is the change which has got me going, what? Wow. This basically makes Warp Gates incredibly expensive to get up and going. It means if you want to get to that gateway production, hey man, you want 8 gateways, that's 400 minerals, 400 gas. That is a mothership cost. It's kind of like adding a reactor and add-on for Terran. In isolation, I think I like this. I'm a big fan of Warp Gate being an option, being something you invest in to go warp in units in their base. What I would be concerned with is that it is, of course, a very significant nerf. I think there's a good idea here, an interesting idea. I don't know if the balance is right from what I'm seeing. Let's finish these changes and confirm this suspicion. Warp in time is no longer determined by slow power fields. Warp in time instead is decreased to 3 seconds from 3.6 and 11. We're going back to overpowered warp-in. Okay, so warp-in is going to be faster than ever, even faster than fast warp-ins, and you can do it off a single pylon. No more proxying a gateway. If you want to do a warp gate attack, you can just do it with a single pylon, but it's way more expensive to get going. You know what? I like that idea. That's kind of really cool. Back in the day, does anyone remember Heart of the Swarm? Does anyone remember Jadong Zerglings? Jadong, who's recently back playing StarCraft 1, by the way. Dude, the maps sometimes are really big. You've never seen a man hunt for a single hidden probe or pylon on the map more than Jaedong's early game was jumping between macro and then going back, and he'd have 2 to 3 scouting Zerglings who would shift click every single corner of the map, every nook and cranny. If there was like a little bit of fog of war, his Zergling was going to go, he would queue up hundreds of little shift A moves. His Zerglings would go around every corner, because back in the day, if a pylon got up near your base, Protoss would just make an army out of nowhere and you'd come out of the fog and you'd just die. Because you didn't need to build a gateway back in the day. It was straight 4-second warp in the old time, which became 3.6, I guess. But in this case, it's harder to do that because you need to now make the warp gates 50-50, which you can't just cheese this at the start of the game. This is, I think, an interesting combo. Overall, it's still obviously a big nerf though, right? Even though you can warp in a bit faster, you don't have to worry about slow warp in fields. The 50-50 is a big cost. And it'll be interesting to see how that gets kind of commensurated. I think these changes are so big, and the economy changes apply to all factions. Looking at these changes so far, I'm going to be playing Protoss all day today and feeling this out, because this feels interesting. I honestly don't think I'd be using Warp Gate till late game. I think I'd basically be going, this is so expensive, I am not going to be making Warp Gate till late game. Like, why would that's too expensive. Unless you want to go for a DT rush. And then you just make 1 or 2 gateways into warp gates, hide that pylon or that prism, and then you just warp in like 2 DTs off. Yeah, that's actually, yeah, chat's saying it as well. Basically, if you want to do DTs, you make like 1 or 2 into warp gates still. That's cool, actually. That is kind of cool. Yeah. And you're like, oh shit, there's a drop. So you're like, I can warp in 2 stalkers to defend the drop. No more than that. Two, and that's it. Zombie Grub, thank you for the raid. Zombie Grub says she hates you. Yeah, I look forward to having a lot of hate on this patch, guys. If you're just tuning in, I did not make this balance patch. I did not know this was coming. We talked about this a year ago, and we've done a bunch of videos talking about experimenting with it. And just so you guys remember, who is the Adam and Eve of StarCraft, guys? Who's Adam and Eve? Who's Adam and Eve? Am I Adam? Am I Eve? Excuse me? Do I look like Bert and motherfucking Ernie? The Adam and Eve in StarCraft. Everybody knows who Adam and Eve of StarCraft are. Look at these 2 gentlemen. And if you go back to my first ever worker start video, I was neural parasited by Artosis and No Regret talking about worker starts and variety. And that's where I made a video reacting to that, and I went, this is so interesting. And then I went on my whole series of experiments testing different worker starts and economy changes. And that's clearly picked up steam with guys like Greener making mods for it and stuff. And yeah, so I blame these guys. Tasteless, like literally a month ago, made a video, a month or 2 ago, about how he's like, I think StarCraft 2 has like not enough variety early, and you should like lower the worker count like StarCraft 1. And then he DM'd me, he's like, Pig, I made this video. He's like, I just found out, apparently you've been talking about this. My whole comment section was people going, Pig's been testing this for a year. And I was like, you've come around. I mean, originally it was Artosis. It was Artosis and No Regret, but then it's kind of funny that out of nowhere, Tasteless like had this, I don't know if it was an independent thought or people were asking him in chat and made like a video talking about it. I did not see these changes coming at all. I did not see any of the changes coming. The reason why we made an update, oh my God! The reason why we made an update on the worker start, if you guys watch my recent video, is people kept asking me about this worker start in the last month. So clearly something leaked about these changes going out, which is why I made that video a week ago, because clearly people were asking me about this. They're going, oh, they're going to change the worker count. So someone leaked something, obviously. But that's that. I actually found out from Twitch chat that this was going on. Well, not that this was going on, but Twitch chat said, oh, this is going on. I didn't really believe them, but yeah. All right, so guys, pre-warp gate, Zealot is slowed down by 1 second, Adept sped up by 2, Stalker slowed down by 1, Sentry slowed down from 1 by 1 second, High Templar from 32 to 40, Dark Templar to 30 from 32 to 40. Okay, why? So I think what they've done, guys, is they wanted there to be a flat 35% speed increase from this number to this number. But I don't think you need to have it be a flat 35%. You can just make it speed them all up different numbers, right? So I'm just like, I don't know why we need to add a second to the Zealot on pre-warp gate. Is there a reason for this? Like, Why is the Stalker building a second slower? Why is the Zealot building? I mean, maybe there's reasons for all these changes. It seems like High Templar and Dark Templar are getting massively slowed down, though. Like, in the current version of the game, doesn't a High Templar... How long does a High Templar or a Dark Templar take to build right now, guys? How long does this take to build? 39 seconds. So have they changed this, guys? This says 32 to 40. Oh, is that still part of the swarm time there, is it? Why are they making High Templar and Dark Templar so slow to build? I don't even... Whatever, I mean, okay, I think this is very similar anyway. I just don't get why pre-warp gate is slowed down. It's just like, why? I think it feels like these numbers have all changed so they can apply a flat 35% because symmetry. It's not going to affect anything because you're not building any of these units until after warp gate's done. I'm just confused about why they did this, guys. You're always going to have warp gate done by the time you do that, I think. It's okay. I don't know. Weird one. I'm not really sure. I guess this makes Protoss... This is a nerf to PvT early game. This is meant to open up... This actually allows Clem to just be a dickhead with his openings a bit more. This 1 second, I think, just allows like little bunker rushes and things to be a bit better. Maybe Proxy Marauders a little stronger. Protoss pressuring the Stalker across the map. Terran can maybe skip the bunker slightly. The Adept's a little faster, so that's a little stronger. I don't know. I think if you, I guess Stalker Zealot is like the scary proxies that actually kill you. Adepts are the more harassment proxies. All right, guys, Sentry, next up. Hallucinations automatically inherit the current order of the casting Sentry. This is the same as that Changeling thing. Click the Sentry to their base, cast Hallucinate Phoenix, and it'll just go there. I guess this is like nice for noobs. I don't care about changes like this. Quality of life, it changes nothing for high-level players, but hey, cool. High Templar, guys, Side Storm, total damage reduced. Okay, people have been complaining a lot about Storm, especially mid and low-level players. The Storm is a zoning tool that obliterates things, and a slight damage nerf on it is, I think, kind of okay. Yeah, you know what's really funny? Am I correct? Greener, are you still here, mate? Is it 100 damage on your mod? Because I remember they kind of copied your Storm changes, but, like, not quite, right? Like, one iteration of your Storm. And yours is 100 damage. And now, okay, they're like, okay, we're not even pretending to be, like, we copied his, but we just added more damage to it. And duration. I think your duration's a bit shorter as well. I think Green Earth's duration isn't as big. But that's funny. They're going down to the Green Earth damage now on the Psy Storm. Yeah, I think that's just lessens the pain of it a little. It's still a spell you absolutely want to avoid going into. I think that's fine. It's okay. I think Storm's really good. I think recently, if we look at Psy Storm in PvZ especially... Hero has lost a lot of PvZs, and it's when he didn't make Psystorm, and when he decided to make Psystorm again, he absolutely destroyed guys like Shin, you know, and a lot of other Zergs. I think there's been, you know, early on with the Storm changes, when this last season came out, there's a lot of people, Storm is bad now, Storm is bad, Storm is bad, all it does is zone. Oh, I really want my main damage spell to be a zoning tool. Anyone who's played with it enough knows it's fantastic. It is worse in certain situations. So when is this Storm worse? Early, like, you can't attack and jump on their army and just throw a Storm drop and kill units as quickly. It used to be you could ambush them with Zealot Storm drop 2 or 3 Storms on them, and kill the army very, very quickly. Whereas now it's more of a, hey, I'm between you and your base. Good luck fighting through these Storms. It takes up more space. It's used in a different manner. But if you ever are just getting surrounded and flanked and jumped on by armies, this Storm has always been worse than the previous Storm, because the previous Storm just did more damage faster. So in a very blitzing, quick engage, the old Storm was better for, like, instantly popping the Marines and the Marauders. But in a more drawn-out fight, which is probably more common, this bigger Storm was generally a little better. I'd say overall, maybe slightly better. It definitely was a different Storm. I think this is probably fine. I don't really see a big deal on this. I'll have to play with it, as always, but we'll see how it goes. It is still weird. Like, part of me still wishes we had the old Storm, because I do miss the damage density of it. It was very satisfying. This Storm, it's different. Not as satisfying to use, I guess. It's satisfying to pop things with Storms, and I do miss that. All right, guys, Disruptor now has a Phantom attack weapon. Wait, wasn't there one for Zerg earlier as well? Did I miss that, guys? Oh, the Infestor also has an auto-attack weapon, guys, and Neuroparasite on Builder SCVs will only expire at structure completion. Sorry, I didn't talk about that. It used to be you would have to neural an SCV like 6 times in a row to build a command center. Whereas with a hatchery or a nexus, you neural at once, throw the thing down, and it builds. So this is, I think, a fantastic change. If you're neuraling an SCV and building a command center anyway, let's at least make it like less impossible to do. Now Terran can get neural parasited as well. But auto attack is really good, guys. So the auto attack weapons, the High Templar got an auto attack weapon, a phantom attack auto attack weapon. Basically, it means your spellcasters, if you A-move your whole army, they'll stop and start throwing a little snowball at the enemy. It doesn't really do any significant damage. It is a noob-friendly change. One of the worst things that Blizzard ever did for Protoss in the community and the respect they got was add a bunch of quality of life changes to Protoss that they didn't add to the other factions. It was one of the dumbest things they've ever done. There was a series of these, they're like, Protoss players don't know how to use control groups. Well, no. Okay, here's where it started. So step one, right, was warp gates. You have to look away from where the production building is to warp in the unit. That's too hard if people don't use control groups. They don't know how to use control groups. So for noobs, we're going to give you a built-in button so it selects the warp gates and then you can warp them in where you want. So that one kind of made sense, right? So they added this one little quality of life because for complete noobs, otherwise they can't use warp gate because noobs don't know how to use control groups. Okay, okay, I get it. But then they were like, guys, Protoss players don't know how to use control groups. So their spellcasters are always just A-moving into the front of the fight and dying at low levels. So we're going to make the High Templar just stop and throw a snowball. And you're like, okay, that's cool. Like, can we get that for Infestors and Vipers as well and Ravens? And they're like, no. If you're Terran or Zerg and you A-move your units, your spellcasters are going to go and die. And you're like, why wouldn't you just do it for all of them? They're like, well, High Templar and spellcasters are really important to Protoss to win or whatever. There's some stupid reasoning for it. And I'm just like, just do it for everyone. And here we are like 10 years later and they're like, guys, we're going to do it for everyone. And you're like, why didn't you just do it? You know, it's crazy, man. They're not giving it to flying units, probably so they don't harass worker lines with it, says Sentry. Does it do real damage? Has anyone tested this in the chat? Does this do real damage? Because I've seen one of them says auto attack, one says phantom attack. Phantom implies no damage, auto attack implies slight damage. Infested does 4 damage, Disruptor does 0 damage. Okay. What is wrong with Blizzard? How? Is there something written in the Blizzard employee contract? You can't make anything as strong for the non-Protoss. Why would you give the High Templar 5 damage on its auto attack and the Infestor 4? It doesn't matter, but just like, why are you guys promoting all this anti-Protoss hatred? Like, just give the extra damage. I'm pretty sure the snowball from the High Templar that it throws is 5. Oh, the Infestor has faster attack speed, does it? Does it balance? If the DPS is the same, it's fair. But just why would you give people so many reasons to hate on a faction? Stop. Like, this is like, you know, like when a parent like treats one kid as the favorite and everyone's like, oh, that's so unfair to the other kids. But then all the other siblings beat that sibling up and like take their stuff all the time because like you're hurting that child by giving them favoritism because then they all get bullied in the playground and like, you know, like you can't, no, it's bad for them. Stop it. All right, apparently it's got higher attack speed, so it's fair. It's just one of these things where I'm like, why would you guys do this? Okay, so the Disruptor has a phantom attack. Warp Prism can now issue load nearby units command as well. And onto the bug fixes and quality of life. Now, guys, there's normally 50,000 of these. Ever since like the modding community started like posting public changes and mods with all these changes, and some of those clearly inspired Blizzard to add them in. Fix an issue where melee units targeting builder SCVs would lose their attack order when the SCV moved through the structure. Whoa! Guys, if you're attacking with a drone, you find a proxy barracks, or you're attacking the barracks in their base with your scouting probe, what you do normally is you go A and you would shift left click like 10 times on the building SCV. Because if you didn't do that, when the SCV would move, the probe or their drone would go, I can't attack it, and it would just derp out and it would just sit there. You don't need to do that anymore. If this works as intended, you can just tell it and it'll automatically kind of follow the unit and keep trying to acquire it. Cool. Nice quality of life. You've just removed part of the skill that I've worked on developing in 15 years in StarCraft, and I'm mad about it. I don't care. That's totally fine. I don't really care. It's not the end of the world. It's small enough that I've just kind of shrugged my shoulders these days. Old man Pig, years ago, would have said, nah, but that's a little piece of interaction that gets rewarded. These days, I just kind of go, whatever. I don't really care that much. There's a little part of me that's still a bit annoyed whenever you remove away any little bit of intricate knowledge that can give you a small, minor advantage in the game, but it is what it is. Fix an issue where SCVs cannot have build orders queued sequentially onto structures already being constructed by another SCV. Oh! Clem just got nerfed. Okay, the difference between Clem and me defending Max Pack's proxy or Zealot into Adept Harassment just got closed. Get wrecked, Clem. We're removing your... So what happens is if you lose... You know you're about to lose that SCV on the command center. It's about to die. And you grab a new SCV, you click it on the command center, it's not going to build it. Because when you click it, that SCV hasn't died. And it will die half a second later, and then the SCV will walk up and stand next to the command center, and he's like, what do you want me to do, boss? And I'm like, clearly fucking build the command center, you dumb friggin' idiot. And he's like, well, there was another guy working here when you gave me that order. I'm like, he's clearly dead. Pick up the drill and start building. And he's like, nah, well, technically, actually, it's not in my initial build contract here, sir. And you're like, fuck. So this is just a, nice noob-friendly change, I guess. It's not the biggest one. For Clem, he doesn't give a shit. Clem's got unlimited APM. For us, it makes it a little easier in some situations. It's not a huge deal, but yeah, it helps. Improved an issue where injecting queens shuffle, allowed reissuing inject during ongoing casts, so orders are not offloaded to other queen. Oh, long-range orders are invalid if another queen is nearby. Okay, this actually makes injecting easier for noobs. That's that. If you're using the spam method of injecting, I think this makes it way more reliable, right? So this actually seems like this is really good for noobs to spam inject without the queens all derping and running to the wrong hatcheries. It's a really good quality of life for players who use that, I think. Active tumors will now take selection precedence over inactive tumors. Active creep tumors in a control. So if you just box all your tumors now, it'll select the active ones. That's a great change. Active creep tumors in a control group at the time of exhausting their charge will now transfer control group membership to the spread tumor. Holy shit. Control group creep spread is here. Control group keep spread? What the fuck? Wow. So when you spread a tumor, it spreads to the new tumor, the control. If you have all your tumors on like control group 7, you select 7, go around, spread those tumors. When you come back 30 seconds later, the new tumors on the front are all on control group 7. I don't think I'm going to learn this. I don't think I'm going to use it. I don't even know if it changes that much. Like, obviously, it will be nice. I remember Scarlet spent, like, months trying to figure out a way to use control grouping to make creep spread more efficient. But she had to, like, remake the control groups every single time. And she was just like, fuck off. Like, she's like, I tried it. I pushed it as far as I could. It's not worth doing. She will actually use this. Yeah, it's cool. Like, I'm really fascinated to see that. That's really cool. Yeah. That's really interesting. TLO's Pig, look at the pinned message, says CHF. Oh, no, you could always inject on the minimap. You can't spread creep on minimap. Okay, sorry, I'm wrong. You can inject on the minimap, and it was always terrible to do. I would never inject. I would never spread creep on the minimap personally. I don't think. I think it's going to be trying to control such tiny movements. Is it worth doing? Maybe. If you could rapid fire across the minimap. Oh, maybe. You put a lot of faith in the vibe coding intern? No. I put a lot of faith in their intention. I didn't say their implementation would be good. This is me understanding their implementation will probably not be good. But, on the other hand, they will fix the bad implementation. That's what they did in the last patch. You guys have to remember, I'm giving Blizzard credit where it's due. The last patch which they did, they actually fixed almost all of the mistakes, or all the key mistakes, like a week or two, within 2 weeks of the patch going live. They actually went and fixed all the bugs. Hopefully they can do it again. But the bugs in the PTR last time as well were some of the most ridiculous bugs we've ever seen. All right, guys, so to summarize the changes, my brain's kind of melting a little bit. I just played 2 games with Protoss, and I like these economy changes. I've talked a lot about this. I don't think I need to go over that. But if we have to summarize everything else, right now, I'm kind of just in this space where I'm going, These Protoss changes are melting my brain a little bit. Obviously, it feels like a pretty big nerf taking Warp Gate away. I do think overall this is only a small production increase. Your Zealots are building 2 seconds faster compared to with Warp Gates. You know, it's especially at pro level, it's probably more of enough. I think for lower level players, the ability to queue up 2 Zealots or 2 Adepts or Stalkers per gateway might actually improve players' macro, right? And they'll build a bit faster. But there's still the downside of I can't warp into your base without spending money for each gateway to transform. I can't warp into Defender base without spending money to transform. And these are sort of things we take for granted as Protoss players. It's hard to quantify how much like losing that is. Now, I've already played games. There is a bit of a bug right now where they do need to fix the subgroup selection as quickly as possible. At the moment, if you have some gateways and some warp gates on the same control group, you literally cannot tab between the two. So you cannot warp in units. It will only select the gateways. So if you are testing this today, I'm sure they'll fix this quickly, but you need to manually select your gateways, your warp gates separately from your gateways. If you're someone who manually control groups your warp gates, and then maybe you've only transferred a few because you don't have the money to transfer all of them, it will screw you over. Make sure you use that built-in warp gate button, at least for today and tomorrow while we're testing, and hopefully they fix this as quickly as possible. Because that is obviously a big mistake there. Not being able to even tab between them is crazy. Overall, with there not really being any commensurate buffs for Protoss, Storm's slightly nerfed, and the warp gates are heavily nerfed. That's a big deal. Don't get me wrong, your warp in time is slightly faster, so when you get to warp gate in late game, it'll be a slight buff in late game. Because, hey, for all floating thousands of resources, anyone can afford to transform all their gateways to warp gates. Number one, it's going to be harder to get to late game with an 8-worker start and the mineral and gas changes. Because people are going to be fighting a lot more in the mid game. That's just what I've seen in pretty much all of my testing of lower worker starts and especially 8-worker starts. And more importantly, getting there and the early game strength is the most important thing. So right now, I'd say balance-wise, there's not really any impactful changes for each race's like strength, except like, you know, like, okay, like Zerg got a little upgrade buff. Microbial Shroud does seem like it'll be a bit busted against Terran. I don't know. I still don't know. Does this affect it against Protoss that much? Like, Microbial Shroud is going to reduce, like, Immortal Arc. Yeah, I mean, I will be using mid-game Infestors. I definitely think this should get taken away. I think Microbial Shroud will be legitimately strong now, not needing that upgrade. It'll just kick in so much earlier in the game. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I really feel like the big change is the economy is massive. And the warp gate change is massive. Okay, guys, so I know I'm a little befuddled and this is not the best summary, but essentially I'm confused by this change. This messes build orders up completely. Having to spend 100 seconds on your gateway just producing an upgrade when it's like your primary defensive military structure in the early game just ruins Protoss early game build orders. I don't understand what the thought process is here. As always, these changes come with no explanations or reasoning. I don't know why this is there. I think even if this was on the Cybercore, this would still be a nerf to Protoss because warp gates are so much harder to get to. I don't think a little 10% build production speed increase over the warp gate build timing is enough to make up for the fact that you are not getting warp gates. So the fact that you're also ruining the early game build orders with this one is a bit rough. This is a beta. This needs to get fixed. I don't know what the plan is going to be, but right now we are just, there's too many, I don't know, too many things going on with the Protoss openings. It's hard enough to learn how to adapt to the new opening economy without also having to mess our build orders up. I'm okay with adjusting those build orders, figuring it out, if there is some recompense. If there is something that gives me a bit more power in my opening. Oh, my Zealots are a bit stronger or whatever it is. Right now, the balance on the Warp Gate gateway changes is not quite there. I'm going to keep playing Protoss today, and I'll give you guys a follow-up, and hopefully they fix some of the bugs and things as well very quickly. Either way, overall, I am quite excited by these changes. Sorry for being a bit airy-fairy. Just those Warp Gate ones really threw me through. I love these changes. You guys know I'm a big fan of the economy changes. Can't wait to see how it plays out. My advice to everyone out there, if you are on the PTR, is play more aggressive, scout earlier, harass earlier, and interact with your opponent more. The main thing that frustrates players when they go from a 12-worker start to an 8 or a 6-worker start is they're used to just building bases and expanding and kind of doing their own thing for longer. And if their opponent goes extremely aggressive, they get punished. Likewise, the opponent could go extremely greedy and get further ahead of you. With the lower economy start and with these increased minerals on the lower patches especially, you will be rewarded more for interacting with the opponent. So I would really advise you guys, get out an early 2-gate Zealot Adept pressure against Zerg. Go for an early 8 pool or 10 pool opening to get 6 to 10 Zergans across and mess with your opponent's opening. Or if you want to play more economically with a straight fast expand, go for an early worker scout to check if your opponent's cheesing you. These are my big pieces of advice that really allow the lower worker start to be more interactive. There's more time for you to react if your opponent is extremely all in or extremely greedy. Because the build-up is a little bit slower, take advantage of that, scout and interact with your opponent as much as possible. Get on the PTR, get testing, and we'll see you guys with some update videos over the next few hours and days. We might be putting out multiple video a day, as there's obviously so much to talk about with this. Catch you guys next time. Goodbye and good night. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been one criminal who has been terrorizing StarCraft for far too long. This one man has been a menace. He has been ruining the game, occasionally beating Clem, and abusing a broken mechanic to do it. Some call him the sexy boy. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. The Great Republic, the United States of StarCraft, is proud to announce we got him. We found him hiding in a cave, 400 changelings guarding him. What a pussy. And we said, no more changelings. You're gonna make us click on every changeling. Fuck you. Fuck you. No, no, no. If I shoot one, they're all gonna die. They're all gonna die. Every changeling's gonna die. We got him. Yeah, fucking get wrecked, Rogue. You just got nerfed. You know, he's a very good StarCraft player. Some say the best Zerg player. I don't know. I like him. I like the guy. It's not me that went after him. But yeah, no. They did just nerf Rogue, which is hilarious, guys.